Welcome to another session of LeadUP online virtual chats. My name is Samantha Castle and I'm the Senior Manager for Alumni Relations at the University of Pretoria. For those of you joining us today, LeadUP Online is a series of informative virtual panel discussions amongst well-renowned UP academic staff and alumni situated in South Africa and other parts of the world. Each session, we look to address topical issues of public interest that are affecting our society today. We would love to engage with you over social media, so I encourage those of you watching to comment throughout the virtual discussion and subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already. Before I hand over to our moderator for today, I'd like to thank you for tuning in. We really do appreciate your ongoing support. So without any hesitation, let us begin with today's session.
Good evening, everyone. I hope you are as excited as I am to follow this conversation over the next 45 minutes. As a sport and exercise medicine physician, I'm really privileged to work in an environment where I share the field and the rooms with many of these high performers. But before we dive into their stories, it's really a pleasure for me to welcome our Vice-Chancellor, Professor Tawana Kupe, to formally open this session for us.
Thank you, Prof. Rensburg, for this very warm welcome. A very warm welcome to everybody this evening. It's a bit chilly, but at UP, we're always warm. First, of course, we're here to celebrate all of our UP women in sport, including the Prof herself, Prof. Christa Van Rensburg, and also our director here, Steve Ball. But, of course, the thing we're celebrating more still today is our athletes who went to the Olympics. Tatiana, Kaylin, Gift, Akane, you know, that was stellar performance. I think you did us very, very proud. And of course, bringing home the gold or the silver, and that no university did in this country. I'm sorry to say, we did it for them. And we carried the Olympics team in all respects, including in management, specialties that support Olympic teams and so on. I'm sorry that tonight, and many of you have asked, where is Tatiana and why is she not on the lineup given she won a gold medal? Unfortunately, and I apologize on behalf of Tatiana, is traveling to Holland today. We will have other occasions for her to be on panels and for us to celebrate here. But the gold is forever, so we will always celebrate here. So, but again, thanks to our athletes. And thanks to everybody who's a woman and is in UP sport, because it really makes us the sporting university, the leading sporting university in Africa. Our ambition is to be the African sporting powerhouse and a global powerhouse, and we have medals to show for it. So I think nobody can actually question us. Sport is very important at UP because it complements the academic side of the institution. Sports people at UP, sportswomen at UP are both strong academically, but also they're sport enthusiasts, they are perfect people, they are actually champions, if you like, and this we celebrate very much. So today, without further ado, I'll bring it back to Prof. Rensburg, and let's hear our sports people themselves.
Thank you, Prof. Kupe. So this event's tagline is celebrating the UP women in sport, and we hope that in this session, you will gain insight into the experiences of athletes during the Olympic Games, as well as the role of sport in a time of crisis. We further hope that you will gain insight in how difficult it is to balance your life as a student and an athlete, and that will then contribute to life-shaping decisions. And then lastly, we really want to celebrate the University of Pretoria's women in sport. And of course, this event is brought to you by the University of Pretoria, and the panelists who will be joining are all UP alumni. So without further ado, I would like to present our panelists. Dr. Phathokuhle Zondi, she was the Chief Medical Officer for Team South Africa at the Tokyo Olympic Games. Then we have Dr. Lize-Marie van Staaden. She was a 2008 Beijing Olympian, but she's also a sport and exercise medicine physician. we have Lize-Marie Whitebooi, also known as Mighty Mouse, and she was part of the 2020 Tokyo Olympic Games as well as the African champion. Then we have Phumelela Mbande, that was also part of the 2020 Olympic team, and she had the privilege of carrying the flag together with Chad Leclos. And then lastly, but not the least, we have Simphiwe Dludlu, also known as Coach Shorty, and she played for Banyana Banyana and is currently a SuperSport presenter. So she was the last woman. And then we have, of course, our director of Tuks Sport and the acting CEO of the High Performance Center, Mr. Stephen Ball, with us. Welcome to all of you. We're really looking forward to this discussion. So I'm going to ask a question to all panelists now, except for Mr. Ball. We'll leave the ball in his side a bit later on. So maybe if we can start, what we want to know is all of you have performed at the highest level in your respective sport codes, whether it was as a participant or as administrative support or being the team doctor at major competitions. So we need to know from you how those moments and lessons contributed to what you are today. And maybe we can start off with Phumi, the flag bearer.
Hello, Prof. Thank you so much for having us. I think sport as a whole has prepared me for a lot of things that I've come across outside of the sporting arena. I think more than anything, I would say it's probably taught me to work. Obviously, I play hockey, so working in a team is quite important. So I think it's taught me to learn to work with the people around me and to collaborate as best as possible. And more than that, I think the high pressure moments that we faced, looking at Tokyo 2020 alone, we are under a lot of pressure a lot of the time. And to learn to manage yourself in that moment, I always say it's incredibly difficult to lead others while you're trying to lead self. But hockey 100% taught me that and has helped me manage that.
Thank you, Phumi. If we can now ask Lize-Marie your thoughts on the same question.
Sport has helped me a lot. If it wasn't for sports, then I wouldn't have gotten the opportunity to study. But more than that, learning how to stand up when I fail has given me the courage to take on challenges that are outside sport and just grab it by both hands and know that I can still persevere and I can do it. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Lize-Marie. Phatho, if we can ask you, what would that moments or lessons be that changed you to be what you are today?
Good evening, Prof, and good evening to everybody who's joining the conversation today. The greatest privilege for me really within sports is the fact that I work in a multidisciplinary team. So as a sport and exercise medicine physician, I work alongside physiotherapists, biokineticists, dietitians, psychologists, the coach, all to support the athlete. And I think in that, through the highs and the lows, one of the biggest life lessons for me was the importance of everybody playing their full role in a team. So in other words, we're all part of a bigger picture. But in order for us to realize this big picture and this big dream, whatever it might be, we all have to be the best version of ourselves. We all have to put our best foot forward. And when we all do that, it all intellects and then realizes into the best performance possible.
I think that is so important, and maybe the best one to then bring the two worlds together as an athlete and a sport and exercise medicine physician will be Lize. So Lize, please, your thoughts.
Thanks, Prof. Yeah, adding on to what Phum said and Phatho, the teamwork, even though I was in an individual sport, I swam, the teamwork is still there. And the moment that I really always look back on was the moment that I actually qualified for Olympic Games and not the Olympics itself. I was there, and just that moment when I knew what I had done, looking up at my coaches, looking up at my teammates, looking up at my family, everyone's there, they're all sharing the joy with you. And you realize, like they said, that you're a team, because everyone there won. It wasn't just me. And taking that into the work I did when I was working in hospital, you realize that everyone's important. It doesn't matter what your job is. We're all there for the same goal. And that in itself, I think, brings the value of being humble and being grateful by respecting each other and working together.
Thank you, Lisa. And then if we can go to, sort of the next question where I really want to speak to the two doctors in the house. Sport, and especially high performance sport, is demanding. It can be quite brutal. So how did the good and bad times influence how you operate today in your dual role as a mother and then as a medical doctor? Maybe, Lisa, we can continue with you while you're on the screen.
All right, thanks, Prof. Yeah, so there's definitely good days and good moments and bad moments, both in the sporting world, as well as in the medical world, and as well as in my family, in general life. And I think the good times, what they do is they help you to celebrate the small victories in life. So you learn that, every small thing that happens should be celebrated, and building on that, you build a positive attitude. And then the bad times really helped me realize that life doesn't throw out the red carpet when you arrive. Sometimes things are difficult, and sometimes you need to cope by yourself. And one thing that I remembered is at the Olympic Games, as South Africans, we don't really have the money or the infrastructure. So, I mean, walking around, I remember seeing Michael Phelps, 3 people walking around him. When they're done with the race, they get given something to drink, protein shake, recovery, someone's carrying their towel. But for us, we were alone, and it's been like that for years building up to the Olympics as well. So I need to know who I am. I need to know to rely on myself. I need to know to motivate myself. So just getting to know yourself and knowing that you need to work sometimes by yourself, same as when you're an intern or if you're a doctor. You get left in the hospital, you just newly qualified and you need to make life and death decisions. So having that inner strength, I think is very important, something that I was taught.
Thank you, Lisa. And Dr. Phathu, what would your thoughts be?
Prof, I think anyone here will tell you that sport is a roller coaster, and especially lead sport. The highs are really high and the lows can be despairingly low. So the lows, the bad times, have taught me that there's always a lesson to be learned. The lesson might be what not to do, or it might be how not to respond. It might be how to do better, or how to dig deeper. And in life, I guess that's the lesson when it's low, is look for the lesson to be learned, right? And dig deeper, because on the other side, there'll always be good times. So on the good times, they are the sparkly moments, the medal performances that you're a part of, or an athlete coming back from a serious injury, for instance, that you didn't think they'd come back from, or they didn't believe they'd come back from. It can be as small as that. It could be qualifying, as Dr. Lisa said. But those good times are a celebration of the work that you've put in. Those good times, for me specifically, have just affirmed the journey that I'm on. I genuinely believe that we've all been put on this earth for a specific journey. So when you have the good times, it just affirms that you've put in the work. These are the good times. And those good times give you confidence to keep going despite the bad times, or when the bad times will come.
Thank you. And Coach Shorty, if I can throw one at you, what would you advise these ladies now, in that moment when they're really down? Many of the athletes have had really disappointments, going to the games. They've prepared for a long time, and now suddenly something come that's not really what they planned for. So what would you as a coach advise the people?
Good evening, everybody. I think it's important for us to emphasize and be able to teach athletes that a setback cannot deny you your destiny, but it can only just delay you. If you can master that, it becomes easy for you to move forward, take a setback and say, how can I? It's an opportunity. It gives you a gap to improve who you are, your results, what you want to achieve. And it also helps you to tap into your mental strength side of things, because sport, for you to excel at that level, you need to be fit holistically, physically, mentally, relationship-wise, it can be your parents, it can be your partner, it can be anywhere, you know, socially as well. You need to be fit. So we often advise athletes not to neglect all the other 4 facets of the game and of a person themselves. So we encourage them as much as they can to dwell on the positives. If you are going to look at the negatives as to why is certain things not happening, or why didn't I qualify, or why am I injured, we just look at what are the loopholes there that really impaired me not to get to that level, and then you improve on that. But we never look at the weaknesses or the disappointments and saying, it means I'm not good enough. Then that way you are really setting yourself back. But support is what we need to give to the athletes as much as we can, because when they are performing at the high level, we need to give the support, because mental health is key. And it's the one thing that helps you, like Dr. Pato said, sometimes the athlete is able to just recover that quick from a setback, or they take longer to recover. So it speaks to mental aspects of the game. So we just advise as much as we can to say, you need to dwell on the positives. Find the slightest positives and stick to that and move with that. Then it helps you to see that there'll be light at the end of the tunnel.
I can't agree more with you. So let's hear from our new Olympians, Phumi and Jerene. We all know that the Olympics is viewed as the pinnacle of sporting competitions, and you both just came back from your very first Olympics. So like Coach Shorty said, you need to be patient. There will be more opportunities, but you already performed on the big stage. So please tell us about that experience and what it means to you to be able to now call yourself an Olympian. Maybe first with Phumi?
So I think it's quite fitting that I go straight after Coach Shorty, because I think her message is actually one that I desperately needed to hear. And it's something that I'm actually working on at the moment. Being an Olympian and getting as far as the Olympic Games has been an incredible feeling. But like a couple of people have mentioned, there's a lot of highs and a lot of lows in sport, and I'm currently going through a low. But it's nice to be able to say, I've achieved this dream, but more than anything now I'm in a position when I'm saying, what's next? Like, how do I build from this past experience? Being an Olympian has been a childhood dream of mine, and I've worked towards it for as long as I can remember. But it's now about looking at what can I improve going forward? How can I try and get to Paris 2024? What do I need to do for myself and for my team to make sure that our performance there is better? So it's an incredible feeling. I think there's very few things that I can compare to being able to say I am an Olympian. Probably only really the day I got my board exam results is probably a feeling that comes close to how this feels. But I think as well, just because of the process and the fact that it wasn't just me, but it was myself and my team. It was the first time South African hockey had been able to go to the Olympics since 2012. So that was a big moment for us as a sporting code. And to be part of that and know that we are part of something much bigger than just ourselves and our dreams is, yeah, really incredible.
Thank you, Phumi. And it will be interesting to listen to what Jerene has to say, because she is in an individual sport while you're in a team sport, and you keep on mentioning your team. So Jerene, let's hear what you have to say.
I was really honored to qualify for the Olympic Games. It was an amazing feeling just knowing that I can represent South Africa at the highest level of competition. The day I heard that I qualified, my coach already sent messages and he went crazy, just because I think for him it was just a great feeling knowing that I qualified and that we worked together. Yes, it is an individual sport, but I need my teammates, I need my coach, I need a physio, I need a doctor. So everything came together in that moment, and it was just a great honor to be there amongst all those amazing people that you usually see on TV, and then you're like, I'm there, I'm walking next to them, and I can carry the label. I am now an Olympian. Yeah.
And what an achievement. Very well done. So Lize, if we can ask you another question. You've been an Olympian in 2008. So how do you think that shaped the way that you practice medicine today or even in the future?
Thanks, Raf. So yeah, being a swimmer, professional swimmer first, and having gone through injuries and illnesses, and then having the opportunity to actually study to become a doctor, and even more so, doing my master's in sports and exercise medicine, it's amazing to look back at my career as a swimmer with what I have learned now. And I really have realized that you cannot treat an athlete as just another patient. It's just not another patient walking in there with a sore ankle. You need to put yourself in that athlete's shoes. You need to know what they've sacrificed. You need to know what their days look like. You need to know what their dreams are. What are their short-term goals? What are their long-term goals? I don't know if Jeremy can maybe comment on this as well, but I remember in the studies we went through all the different sports, and the judo athletes really amazed me. We spoke to one that said that she had literally in a competition hurt her ligament in her knee, and she was like, listen, judo is about, it's more than just the sport. It's more than just winning. It's about the way you do it. And she needed to finish the fight, and she asked them to strap her up and go. So, I mean, as a doctor, I need to know things like that. I need to know what's important to help the athletes, reach their dream.
That is true. So the athletes really put their bodies on the line. But maybe I need to say this. I'm really proud to say that both Dr. Lize and Dr. Poto are alumni from our Masters in Sport and Exercise Medicine at the University of Pretoria. And you can see what levels they've achieved. So well done, girls. And on that, Poto, being the Chief Medical Officer for a national team, really comes with a lot of responsibility and expectation. And in this time of global crisis, what have you learned through this experience, and how do you think it can shape women to go ahead in the sport leadership space?
Thanks, Prof. And before I answer the question, maybe some credit must go to you, who heads the section Sports Medicine, for the products that you have produced, as well as the whole team at Head of Sports Medicine. But to answer the question directly, under normal circumstances, as you say, having responsibility of Chief Medical Officer for any games is quite a task. And certainly COVID did throw a whole lot of complexities and layers into the mix of that. But if I just take some of the lessons learned in terms of applying them to general leadership, I think what this experience, specifically amidst the pandemic, did teach me was probably three things I'd pick out. The first thing is the importance of planning. It's really important to understand the game in which you're entering, and you need to plan for various scenarios and try and quite literally just brainstorm what could possibly happen, what could possibly go wrong, and then prepare for that. How do you personally need to prepare? Who is the team that you need around you? What supports do you need? Because you can't do it by yourself. What possible challenges might you face? And then prepare for those different scenarios. The second thing is the importance of agility in life, because as much as you can prepare, there's always the chance of something unexpected happening, and you've got to be able to respond to that, and you need to be agile. And the thing is, proper planning does give you the confidence to be agile, because you know that you've covered your bases, and even if this particular scenario hasn't come up, you can take from the different other scenarios that you've planned from and adapt and respond to that. And then probably the last thing I would just say in terms of a lesson that I can draw from this and apply to generally life and leadership certainly is the importance of resilience. Things don't always go according to plan. There will be curveballs thrown your ways, no matter how well you've prepared, no matter how many scenarios you've planned for. Even when you bounce back, you might get another curveball thrown at you. But resilience is important in the game of life, in the game of sport, in the game of leadership. The saying that they say is quitters never win and winners never quit. For every time you get knocked down, you need to get back up and try again. So learn, adapt, and move forward.
I can't agree with you more. And I think, as a nation, we can be very proud that we've been very resilient through these very difficult times. So well answered, Dr. Zondi. Now let's put Mr. Ball on the spot for a bit. So, Stephen, how important is the role of sport during times of crisis and struggle?
Yes, I think firstly I want to say thank you to all the ladies for joining in this panel this evening. Just listening again to their stories, you realize that sport has an ability to teach us. It has ability to teach people who want to be taught, because it can bring a lot of stability in times of crisis as well. If I look back on the last 18, 19 months, probably one of the biggest things I'm the most proudest about the way sport took place at the University of Pretoria was the way people adapted. And sport, I think, was the thing that taught the adaptability, because like it's already been said, in many instances, sport doesn't just have highs, it's also got lows. It's got curveballs that get thrown at you. And then sometimes in team sports, when you're the coach and you suddenly have to make changes, your ability to adapt and then to link with Doc Phathu, the resilience thereof comes in. So I think there's so many lessons that we can take from sport that can be applied in a business space, in a social space. And then we shouldn't forget about the importance of sport in society, which is way bigger than just competing. Numerous people talk about that impact that it can have. And if you use sport correctly, it can become an amazing tool that can be used to galvanize people. It has the ability to destroy, but it can be, if used correctly, something to galvanize.
Yes, and I think that is where the importance of a coach comes into play. So let's hear what Simphiwe will say on that question. Coach Shorty? It seems like we may have lost Coach Shorty, so we'll come back to her shortly.
Okay, I unmuted. There we go.
Okay, good.
Yes. I think as coaches, it's important for us to understand the moving times. COVID has also thrown a curveball to say it's modern times. If it's not COVID, it's technology. If it's not that, it's resources. If it's not that, it's just times changing. And we keep on brewing different types of athletes that come from different times, genetic makeup. There's a lot that goes into it. So I think we need to be a step ahead as coaches and be able to understand the dynamics of the sport, of the players, for ourselves as well. How do we evolve and be able to make sure that we are on par on the demands of the game? And the demands of the game for us is to make sure that we brew and nurture athletes that are able to adapt to changes, just like that, whether in individual sport, whether in team sport. And that speaks to incorporating everybody that is involved in making sure that these athletes perform to their maximum best. And it speaks to the medical side of things. It speaks to the biokinetic side of things. It speaks to even vision and visual. Visuals speak to your videos. It speaks to a lot of things where you keep players captivated and show them that with resources, with less resources, how do you keep vying to be the best at what you do, and it's to keep the motivation going. If you don't have that going, then it's difficult really to move beyond catastrophes and things like COVID, because you have to evolve. You have to always find ways to find loopholes in difficult moments, because it means now you need to look at individual coaching inside a team sport because of COVID. How do you make sure that the environment is safe for the athletes in terms of physical injuries and all of that, in terms of COVID-wise? How do you make sure that athletes are updated? They are knowledgeable about the sport and they're knowledgeable about the conditions of playing in these days that we live in. So it's very key for us as coaches to evolve, be a step ahead, become an expert at everything you do. And when I say experts, I remember, Doc, when I got into the HPC, you were the chief doctor here at HPC, and you constantly had to teach us and show us how do you evolve as athletes within the sport. I mean, being at HPC, being at Tuks, it's a gold medalist lifestyle. So it means you need to be a step ahead. And that is what Tuks has given to me as an athlete, as a coach, as a student, and now as a parent as well. So all of those are things that you undergo as an individual. How do you help influence the current crop of players or athletes, or even students that are around you, that you influence and help them to navigate through the difficulties, especially of COVID?
Thank you. Very well answered. So, Renee, competing in the under 49 kg weight category, is one of a few ladies that won't mind me calling her weight. Most females don't want us to tell them about that. But as they say, dynamite comes in small packages. So this little one has already done one postgraduate degree. She's currently busy with another postgraduate degree through the University of Pretoria. So, Renee, what are some of the lessons you've learned as a student athlete? You know, how did you balance your sport and your academia to meet all the goals?
What was very important for me was knowing what I wanted to achieve in my sport and in my academics. So I had a goal for my sport and I had a goal for my academics, and I knew that I had to achieve that no matter what comes my way. So goal setting and then planning. Planning was very important because I needed to know what time I'm training and how many hours I needed to invest into my studies per day, weekly, monthly. So planning was also very important. But I think the most important lesson I learned was that you really need to push yourself. There's no one else that will help you. You can have sport athletes that does the same studies as you, maybe the same sport as you, but we're not the same person. So we get motivated in a different way, and we have to stay dedicated in a different way. So for you to have self-motivation and to be dedicated to achieving that goal that you have set out, you need to be very disciplined. Whether at times you want to take a bigger break, you need to know that you have limited time and that you have to stay focused and achieve your goal.
Yeah, and I think many times people do not quite understand the amount of time that you need to spend to compete at the level of an Olympian. It's not just an hour or two per day. It's much more than that. And then at the same time, you need to still hold up your academia. So, Renee, very well done. And I know that Phumi also has done quite a bit, and she's actually a CA. That is just amazing. So, Phumi, please tell us about your journey as a student athlete and now going to the Tokyo Olympics.
Prof, I think Michaela touched a little bit on a lot of what my experience has been. I think someone mentioned it earlier that being at Tuks is a gold medalist lifestyle. The Tuks accounting program is hands down the best in the country, and there's facts for that. Going into that, I already knew that I was going to be challenged, and I was going to have to be clear on what I want for myself in terms of hockey and in terms of my academics specifically. I was very grateful for the environment that Tuks created for me as a student athlete. Michaela and I actually lived in the same house for a couple of years. And if you look at our house and the fact that I think it's no coincidence that we're the two players in our house that have been so successful, it was really important to be able to look to the people around you, to lean on for guidance in terms of how to manage and how to navigate being a student athlete. So that environment that cultivates excellence, that environment that requires of you to stay dedicated to what your goal is, not just from a sporting perspective, but from an academic perspective as well. What was also really important for me was always communicating right to the people involved in my setup. So at the beginning of every year, I'd literally sit down with every lecturer and be like, so here's the chat. I want to be a CA, but I also want to be a South African women's hockey player. And what I found along the way is that people, and more specifically my lecturers at Tuks, really wanted to help in whatever way they could. You just needed to speak up. And that's become very relevant in my work environment as well. I work in an extremely demanding environment that's under a lot of pressure and requires a lot of teamwork. But again, if I can just communicate what my plan is for the year to the people that I'm involved with, the partners, the team members, the other managers, it makes it easier for people to be able to help me. it definitely isn't a one-man show ever, whether you're in a team sport or you're in an individual sport. There is a lot of reliance that comes on the people around you. And I think Tuks 100% prepared me for that. Stepping into the workspace, I really didn't struggle to navigate that environment at all.
Thank you, Phumi. Very well said. So let's give the man in the house a word or two. Although we're celebrating Women's Month, and specifically today, the UP Alumni Women in Sport, I want to ask Mr. Ball, how do you see the landscape of women in sport evolving, especially when considering your areas of influence?
Thanks, Prof. I think this evening is an example of that. And I think we don't often enough listen to the stories that can be told. And not enough stories like that is tonight being shared get told so that the next generation of women in sport get that opportunity to think that way. I'm commonly known as a girly dad with 2 young daughters. And, you know, sitting here tonight, you know, and I listen to again, the testimonies of these young women, and I think to myself, if my daughters can grow up to be half the people that I'm listening to and gain half those lessons, the space for women in sport will be huge. The landscape is definitely evolving. I think areas where we need a lot more evolution to take place, for lack of a better word, is in coaching. I don't know the exact stats, for example, but if you take the number of female coaches versus male coaches, you know, it was quite scary to think. I heard them saying that, you know, Team South Africa, the women's water polo coach was the first women's water polo coach at the Olympics. You know, and you say, but this is people who are coaching other ladies. You know, their understanding of each other might be completely different. You know, we've seen in our Tuks Sport environment, we've got phenomenal women leaders in sport. And, you know, we've also got some phenomenal women coaches in sport. And they come with a different skill set that us men don't have. And it's important for us to listen and to learn. And I really do hope that that is something that we can see evolve even more. I'm not talking about formal leadership structures and leadership spaces, but giving people an opportunity to grow, because I'd like to hope that through what we hear today, that my daughters will have that opportunity if it is destined for them to be able to compete at that level. So yes, I think there's evolving taking place. Is it fast enough? Probably not. Are there areas? Definitely. Coaching, the sport leadership space, definitely. But we just need to have a couple of these ladies start taking senior roles in our federations, and I think we'll start seeing things happening as well.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, what we've seen over here, Stephen, is that, you know, if you have someone setting an example, you know, if we look back at the 400 hurdles, men, and now we look at what happened with breaststroke women, and with Phumi being the flag bearer. So girls can start to dream and they can grow into those roles. But now you sort of tickled my mind, and I want to know what Coach Shorty wants to tell you about the female coaches. Simphiwe, what do you think?
I think it's incredible how leaders in those spaces are able to have the belief in women coaches. I mean, I'm looking at the USA before they appointed a male coach now. Coach Jill was there and the whole team was women. I look at Banyana Banyana, the senior football team, women's team now with Coach Desiree Ellis. The whole team is women except the goalkeeper coach, because we don't have an expert goalkeeper coach yet. In my under-17 team, I have an all-women team, from the medical doctor to the physio to the biokineticists to a kit manager. It's only the goalkeeper coach who's still a man, but we are working in the process of making sure that women's sports are coached by women, because there are a lot of women out there that are qualified enough, have the experience, are more than capable to bring in results. And I'm pleading to leaders out there, to decision makers, to be able to say, we can see women are there, they are making an effort to make sure they are qualified enough, they have the experience, they have the passion to bring in results. With or without resources, because at times it feels like women in leadership spaces, they're just placed there for failure. It must not be a ticking box issue. It must be you are there on merit. And you are placed there because you can make a change, because you are capable of making a change. Also, when it comes to remuneration part of things, it must not be, oh, she's a woman, yeah, she can take half a paycheck. No, give her a full paycheck because she's doing the exact same job that a male counterpart would do in the same space. We are more than capable. And I'm happy to know that there's women in leadership positions that are making sure that we have enough resources. I'm looking at the South African Football Association now. The appointed CEO is Lize-Marie, who was also at Tuks in a leadership position. That says to a girl child, it's possible. And the women that are up there, they are there to make change. Prof, I'm looking at you. You are in a space where a lot of doctors out there are looking up to you, and they know you as a mentor, as a doctor that is able to say, I'm a doctor. I'm not a woman doctor. I'm a doctor. If that is the narrative, it's easy for women to even reach the sky and move even further than that. Because if we are given the resources, we are given the platform with enough support, we'll be able to turn the corner and make sure we nurture and bring in more athletes that are able to relate with women. Like Mr. Ball said, it's easy when a woman coaches a woman because we understand all the dynamics. And there's something I want to clear. We are not overlooking the base and the foundation that the men in different sporting codes have laid for us as women right now. We really applaud that. We appreciate that. We just need more support, more time, more belief in us that we can achieve the same results, if not more, because we are able.
And I think what people many times forget is that females are a bit different. We're moody, and men do not always understand that. So if you come to the pitch and you're not in a good mood, I do think that the female coach or the female manager will be more able to handle that. And that said, also as a doctor, many times patients will tell, but doctor, you show much more empathy than the colleague. And I think that is what the females can bring to the party. So I would like to hear what Dr. Zondi has to say on that, Phatho.
I definitely think that the landscape is changing. And for us to overlook the progress that has been made would be for us to be disingenuous. And so, as Coach Shorty has already mentioned, look how many teams are already led by an all-female team. I would take it one further than Shorty and say, absolutely, as a starting point, female teams need to be coached by females, or at least they need to be part of the top pick. But also, there's no reason why female coaches can't coach top-performing male teams, right? Because, again, as Shorty said, you are a coach fundamentally when you're at that platform. The fact that you're female adds a great perspective and layer and understanding and nuance in certain settings, but you are a coach first and foremost. And therefore, as a coach, you should be able to coach any team, male or female, within that space. So I do think that there's progress that's been made, and it's important for us to celebrate the progress. We may get frustrated with the rate of change because I think absolutely we're not seeing progress driven as fast as we'd like it to be seen, and as fast as it should be actually being seen in terms of changing the narrative. But I think the fact that you do see female leaders or females represented in different spaces on different levels is an important part of progress, because representation matters. Representation at every level of leadership, of sport, of the environment is really important, because representation means that you bring different perspectives to the table. Representation means that your conversation and the way the policies are formed will have that perspective, will have that narrative. Representation means that the way that you perform clinical care and the things that you'll look out for in coaching, as we've mentioned, some of females have got different nuances physiologically and even perhaps in terms of technically. So when you know that, when you've got that perspective around the table, the way that you teach the game might also be nuanced in a way that's important. And the way that you award sponsorships and the way that you commercially cover something will be informed by being appropriately represented. And so representation matters. And because we are seeing that we are better represented in these spaces, not enough, but better, then this is a sure sign of progress.
Thank you, Photo. So that being said, maybe we can ask all the female panelists, you now being the generation that needs to set the example, how do you see your role to set a really good example to get more females into this environment where you are working or playing? Maybe if we can start with Poto while you are on the screen, Poto.
I think it's a great question because often, and probably many of us on this platform will have been celebrated for being the first female X or the first Black X. And while again, one must acknowledge that as a sign of progress, we also have to acknowledge that we stand on the shoulders of giants to get here. So it's certainly not something that you've achieved by yourself, but also it's not enough. And so we can't sit back and relax now, having been the first Black female flag bearer, as an example. We will only be able to celebrate in truth once we're no longer able to say that, once we are one of many, because then that's a sign that we're appropriately represented and that the right amount of people are being acknowledged. Because also the fact that you're the first Black X doesn't necessarily mean that you're the only female who can do X, Y, Z, or the only Black person who can do X, Y, Z. And so I think our responsibility, to answer your question directly, is that when we, I want to say arrive, but it's a bad word, but when we find ourselves in these spaces with these opportunities, it's important for us to create space for other people. And so that is our responsibility. Our responsibility is to share the lessons learned, as we're doing on this platform, to share the lows, to share the highs, to share our journey, not because somebody else's journey is going to be exactly the same, but because you can always learn from listening to somebody else's journey and then decide on how that translates to your own journey. And definitely, when you are in these spaces, to create opportunities for other people to join you and to come alongside you in these spaces. Like you did, Prof, for me, I can say. You know, you pushed me into spaces that you weren't even in. Where I looked at you bizarrely when you said to me, go and be that rugby doctor, they need help. But that ended up changing my career entirely. And that is the kind of leadership that we need to show as women or as people who just have opportunities and who are fortunate.
Yeah, for me, that touches a very important point, that we need to give people opportunities. Otherwise, no one will get better or perform on that level. So, Poto, thank you very much for that. And you pointed Phumi as the flag bearer. So, Phumi, what's your thoughts? How will you change the world for the new generation?
Doc, it's difficult coming in after what Dr. Phathokuhle said, because I think she's literally hit the nail on the head, because it is exactly about that responsibility to know that, yes, you're the first person here, but may you not be the last. It's opening those doors for people out there. When I look at myself and my story, I come from extremely humble beginnings. And I was only able to get to where I am because of the opportunity that was created for me, opportunity through sports specifically, but also opportunity to study. Like a little bit like Renee said earlier, my academic career was funded by my hockey career. And my responsibility, or what I look to do now, is to say, who else out there, what other child out there needs this type of opportunity, and what am I doing to make sure that they get the same? Because if not for the opportunities that I got, where would I be? I think it's a huge responsibility, but it's also a great position to be in, to say I can make a difference in someone else's life. And it is just a matter of figuring out how to navigate that space and ensuring that you then do create those opportunities. And then when you get one, you get two, you get three, and you make the environment better for the people that will come after you.
Thank you, Phumi. Renee, your thoughts, and how will you change that for the young kids coming through?
Like Phumi has mentioned, that sports opens up doors and it gives you opportunities. And I believe that I have a message to carry, that yes, we have a passion for sports, but that doesn't mean that my studies is a backup plan. It's no plan B. I want to be successful in my academic career as well. I want to be a successful woman in a company. So do your sports, love your sports, and be passionate about it, but also drive the same as you do in your sports, in your academics.
That's so important, that you need to have that balance, because unfortunately in this environment of high performance sport, it is so easy to get an injury that may be career ending for some of the athletes. So that is what we at the university strive to do, to also get our student athletes to be very good professional people once they leave the wings of the university. So very well summarized, Jerene, thank you. Dr. van Staaden, your thoughts?
So I really hope to, firstly, to be a role model, and to have my role as starting with by seeing, when I see the young women coming through that want to do sport, just by showing them and helping them to know that there is no limit. You can be an Olympian, and you can be a doctor, and you can be a mother. There's not an either or. There's not like, no, sorry, I can't be a doctor because I want to be a mom, or, you know, I can't be a mom because I want to be an Olympian. You know, it's possible to have all three of those things. There's no limit. Just because you're a woman, there's no limit to who and what you can be.
Thank you, Lize. So let's get the wise coach Shorty to sort of end off this specific role-playing model that we want to create for future generations. Simphiwe?
I think firstly, it's important for us as role models to be hard on ourselves in terms of demanding excellence from ourselves, because people learn by seeing what we do. And we are at that stage in that platform where people learn from us by seeing. So we need to demand excellence from ourselves. And in demanding excellence for ourselves, we need to make sure that we are authentic, we are honest about the journey ahead, because then it helps those that are coming behind to know that there's hardships, there's joy in it, but there's hardships, and they need to work hard to be where they want to be. We need to find ways to support each other as women. If young ones see us as the elders that are ahead of them, supporting each other in our different spaces, they take the baton and continue with the same attitude as well. We need to always remind ourselves and remind the young ones that we also belong to the world. We can add value. We add to the economic structures of sports as well. You know, we also need to remind them. And I think across the board, everybody has mentioned that being a student athlete is the best thing in the world, because when you are educated, it enlightens everything that you touch on. It helps you to understand things better. It helps you to be able to be a step ahead from others, because you conceptualize things, you understand things better, you are able to present your case better. It builds on your confidence as well. And more than anything, my role as a Simphiwe Dludlu is to strive to make sure that there's other Simphiwe Dludlus that will be 10 times better than me. It is my role to make sure that the hardships I faced, they cannot face those hardships as well. Let them face their millennial hardships, but let them not face the same hardships that I faced as an athlete, as a coach. So I need to make certain things easier. And Dr. Phathu mentioned that we are standing on the shoulders of giants. Now we have to become those shoulders that they need to step on and propel forward. And last but not least, I need to be a role model to say to athletes, let your environment motivate you. It can be a poor environment. It can be a resourceful environment. Let it nourish you to say, if it's a poor one, I want to spring up and go further. If it's one that has resources, let it motivate me. When I stand at HPC, I say I cannot fail when I come from such resources. So that must be the attitude that we show to the young ones that are coming up.
Thank you. Wise words indeed. So I think to sort of end off this very interesting conversation, I would like to leave the viewers with a parting thought from each of the panelists. So, Coach Shorty, maybe let's start with you. What do you want to leave with all the alumni and viewers?
I want to say to the women, especially these ones in the panel, you are incredible. Bumi, hardships cannot shape you, but they can shape where you want to go. So whenever there's that hurdle that you have to jump on, even if you're not an athlete, find a way to go around it, go underneath it. To the doctors, you guys have shaped medicine in sport. Thank you so much, because it also enlightens us as coaches, and the athletes now know what it means to be a professional athlete, And I also want to say to the women here in the panel and out there, never take no for an answer, but you can live with a not yet.
Thank you. Phumi, what would you say to the people?
I think a theme that's been very apparent throughout my career, both in hockey and in academia, it is that there's a quote, I'm going to paraphrase it a little bit, but it's something along the lines of speak up even if your voice is shaking. So take up space, take up roles, lead through yourself, but lead others. So lead yourself and lead others, and make sure that if you have a thought, if you have an idea, put it out there. Dare to speak up, dare to say something, dare to make the changes that need to be made. History has proven that people will be comfortable to keep the status quo and to keep things as they are for as long as it suits them. And unless you say something and you challenge the status quo, nothing's going to change. So the responsibility is on you. And what a privilege and what an honor to be in a position that can spark some change. And maybe the change doesn't come with you, and maybe it doesn't come in your lifetime in that space. But be the change maker, be the person that initiates that, and take people along with you, and someone else will take the baton from you and make the change that needs to be made.
That is such an important lesson that we need to learn, that if you want change, you need to be the one to make that change. Very well said, Phumi. Renee, your last words to the viewers?
I would just like to say that someone told me this quote, and I've carried it with me throughout the journey that I have been walking with judo and with my academics. It says, do not worry. No, what you worry about today won't matter tomorrow. You will fail many, many times in this journey that you are walking, but just stand on your 2 feet and focus on your goal and push till the end. You will make it.
That is so true. Winners don't lie down. They stand up and they fight for more. Thank you, Renee. Dr. Lize?
All right. So my comments, especially to the young women out there, the quote that I grew up with, that I used in my swimming career, having always been more on the petite side compared to my competitors, was don't. It's not the size of the dog in the fight, but it's the size of the fight in the dog. So I want the young women out there. I don't want anyone to put a label on you. I want you to decide who you want to be, and then take that first step, because you're already a woman. So whatever you do, whatever step you take, you are going to be great at it. No one's going to set any limits on you. So make the decision and go for it.
Just do it, like the famous Nike sign. Absolutely. Dr. Porto?
Prof, I'm going to speak to the women in the audience, or the ladies in the audience. No matter what your industry, no matter what your dreams, there is space for us here. And more importantly, there is a need for us here. And so if it seems like there's no space, get ready to make space, sister, okay? Because there is a need for you in that platform. And once you get there, be excellent. Not perfect, because there's no such thing, but be so darn good at what you're doing that there is no question about your right and your value that you're adding in that platform. And you're doing it not just for the people that are looking on and listening to you, or the people that are looking up at you, but you're doing it for yourself. Because once you've made that space, you want to be able to walk away knowing that you gave it your best, and that you're deservedly worthy, and that you added value. So there is space for us in the journey that you're taking. And more importantly, as a female, there is a need for us at every level, in every sphere of the journey that you're taking.
Thank you, Porto. Very, very well done. Stephen?
I think there's a few words that stick out listening to the ladies speak tonight. And I think my challenge is to us men the lessons I pick out of a conversation like tonight is 1, be willing to be vulnerable. 2, be willing to communicate what you want to achieve. And 3, know that the lows and the highs don't define who you are. So don't stand in the way of people who should be able to perform. Walk alongside, just the same as people have never stood in the way of me. I need to not be standing in the way of women in sport. And it's been a privilege for me just listening again, because I think as men we don't listen properly. We assume, we aren't always as vulnerable, and listening again tonight, knowing the journey of many of these ladies has been something special. And I know for a fact none of them have had easy journeys, and there's been many tears. But what I've also learned along the way is none of those moments, their sport never defined who they were as a person. They had other aspects that defined who they were as a person. Their sport, their work and everything else and family was the things that were surrounding them. And I think that is such an important lesson.
Thank you, Stephen. So I think the estrogen got to Stephen. He now understands the females a bit better. Thank you for that. So that leaves me to thank all our wonderful panelists, to congratulate you on all the achievements. At our university, we're really very proud of you. It makes us proud to say that you're alumni, and we know that you will be flag bearers of this institution going forward. So thank you for offering your time, for telling your stories, and for being willing to be role models going forward. In future, we will definitely call on you many more times. So thank you to each and every one of you, as well as to the viewers. We really appreciate you listening to what we had to say in the studio tonight. And I also need to alert you that we will have another virtual chat of the LeadUP alumni coming on the 16th of September, and that will be in the Heritage Month. So the title of that talk will be Natural Heritage as an Agent of Social Well-being. So thank you all. As we've mentioned, this event was brought to you by the University of Pretoria's Alumni Relations team. And now you can all go and have a nice dinner and hopefully a nice glass of wine. Good evening to all.